Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back. My name is Dan Catherine. Thanks so much for joining me today. I'm going to talk about going full-time as a creative entrepreneur. If you notice the earpiece, it's new. It's so I can hear myself because I am operating pretty much by myself. So it's good to know if the audio goes out because I have done an hour-long video and the audio went out and I had no idea. Also, I didn't want the big, headset. So I've seen a lot of podcasters do the little earpiece and I am giving it a shot. So it's the first time I can also hear myself. So I know if the audio is good, if I'm too far away, it also does help me know what I'm saying sometimes, right? Essentially, there are several ways to go full-time. I have a video already. If you guys want to watch that, the 4 ways to go full-time, I believe it's called, the 4 ways to go full-time video creator or photographer. So there are 4 different types of ways you can go full-time. And that's kind of what I'm going to preview here. When I'm talking to the creative entrepreneurs, the photographers, the video creators, the video editors, the people in the creator space who want to go full-time in their career, they have a business, they're trying to make that their main thing. Maybe they're at a job, they want to take it full-time, or they're just barely getting by and want to really ramp that up so they don't have to worry so much every month. Been there, done that, have t-shirt 4 times. So I understand where you're coming from. And I want to try to help you the best I can. And maybe you haven't found somebody out there who really you feel like you can like connect with, and maybe he has the same values as you do, or the same interests, or maybe they just didn't make sense. So hopefully I can kind of guide you a little bit. I've been doing this now for 16 years. I started my first company when I was 19 years old. That was a video production and photography company that I started in my dorm room. I took out a college loan that I didn't need because I had pretty much a full ride scholarship. And I used that money to buy my first iMac. That's not that one anymore. And my first camera. And then I pitched I realized like there were some of these events that I could probably make money at. I've been making videos since I was 7 years old. I really started going, ham, I guess you could say, when I was 11, 12, 13 years old. Every weekend and summer, that's what I want to do. I was an athlete. I was very involved in church. I was very involved student, but I was also really every time I could get, I wanted to make a video. And this was, I'm aging myself, but it's well before YouTube, well before all that. I am 36 years old. And so I've been doing this a very long time. So, and there's been ups and downs. I have had to shut down my business, close my doors. I've had months, I've gone to zero and negative zero and back to full-time, making a living, doing what I love. And I've been the person who has to do everything to the person who can hire people to do some things. And I'm still growing. I'm not this multi-millionaire who's trying to give you advice. I'm kind of in the trenches with you. I was just there. So I want to try to help you the best that I can. Because a lot of these, I think people, they give us advice and, they've almost forgotten what it was like sometimes. And and they maybe don't have the experience or maybe the values that I had. So it's hard to take advice from them. Although I do think that the best thing you can do is just continually learn and grow and try to be a student. I know it's hard, especially when you have years and years of experience, and that's kind of where you get stuck because you think that you know what you know, but you don't. So if you don't have what you want, then there's always more to learn because you definitely don't know how to get that yet. So I'm not trying to, I'm going to try to manage expectations here. In general, what I'm trying to do with my content also moving forward is helping other creators go full-time. And when I say full-time, I don't mean you're a millionaire. I don't mean that you're even have a 6-figure business. For most people, that just means being able to live and pay their bills. And people, especially online, have a warped sense of what that is. I may not give the exact stat, but the average American income for a single individual in America is like $39,000, something like that. For a household, it's maybe 70. But so, just to reason with you, just to realize that, hey, you don't need a 6-figure business to go full-time. You don't need $1 million business to go full-time. You don't need a multi-million-dollar business to go full-time. You just need enough. And maybe your number is different. Maybe you have a family, whatever that is. And maybe you're the only supporter of that family. Fully understand. I get it. But your number, if you do the math and really know your numbers, you might find that it's not as high as you thought it was. And then even to start that business, as I know, with nothing, it's actually might be a lot easier than you think it might be. And there's a lot of businesses, whether or not you're, trying to go out there to be a service-based business like me, and many of my friends who have businesses that may not be exactly what you do, but there are tons of ways you can make a living. And I'm going to go through them real quick here, but I just want you to know that there is a path forward. There is a way to do it. You're not crazy. It's very viable, and it's a lot easier than you think it is. So everyone who tells you different isn't doing it. I will tell you that. So you're in the right place. If there are a lot of people telling you that that's impossible or that's unlikely, ask yourself this question: are they where you want to be? Is that person giving you that advice doing the thing that you wish that you were doing? The answer is almost always no. Almost always. Because if they were, they would advise you on how to get to where they are. But they're probably trying to advise you to get to where they are doing what they do, whatever that may be, their path, whether that be a 9-to-5 that's a job that they don't like, or whatever their thing is. They can advise you on that. And that's, maybe the path that they think that's best fit for you, but it's probably not. So anytime someone gives you advice, if it's negative, now, if it's positive, then, take the advice. But if it's negative and criticizes you and demeans you or makes you feel badly about yourself, ask yourself, is that person who I want to be or where I want to be? Or is there anything about this that's going to be positive for me? And if it's not, then just let it roll off. People want to give you advice a lot and a lot of times it's negative advice and bad advice. And, most entrepreneurs will not give you that type of advice because they know what it's like. Anybody, even old men who are retired, they will give you different advice and I mean old men who are retired who had their own business. Those entrepreneurs, those grassroots entrepreneurs who are now retired will give you different advice and give different life advice than somebody who always worked for somebody else and who's retired. Those are two different people. Now, I'm not saying that everybody should be an entrepreneur. Of course not. That's just not the way the world is. But there are many different ways to do this full time. That doesn't necessarily mean being an entrepreneur. Maybe that's your calling. Maybe it's not. But there are several ways to do it. So it is very, very possible. I just want you to know that. And I'm here to help you. And I hope that this helps because that is my goal. So again, I really go through the 4 different ways and I can kind of break them up a little bit that you can actually go full time. So it's really important, I think, first to understand what full time means for you. So do you just want to do your craft? And that's it. You want to shoot photos, you want to make videos, you want to, edit, you want to design, you want to just, whatever your craft, your thing is. That's all you want to do. And you don't necessarily want to have a business with it. You don't necessarily want to, you don't know how to start a business. You don't want to manage a business. You don't want to manage clients. You don't want to have to advertise and market. You don't want to have to figure out how to be a boss, in the future. You don't necessarily want to be so in charge and be vulnerable in that way. It's important to know. These aren't bad things. This is just important to know what kind of way in which you want to have your life. What kind of career do you want to have? So do you want to just do the craft? In that case, there are many company employment options. That's one of the ways you can go full time. I know it sounds ridiculous, but I think a lot of people, and especially me when I was young, I didn't realize you could just go be a videographer for somebody. And especially these days, especially now, almost every company from the Fortune 500s to Fortune 5000s to the small mom and pop stores, you could go be a full-time employee for almost anybody, being a videographer, content creator, photographer, social media manager, whatever your shtick is. You could go find, if you're have some skills and you're good and you've had some, portfolio work, and obviously you got to practice and be good about it. But yeah, you can go get a job and be full-time and have no worries. And there you go. Problem solved. So I want you to know that is an option in almost every creative aspect. There are people, and you can even grow in that. You don't always have to be the, camera operator. You can grow into be, especially if they have a media department, or if they're growing their advertising department, whatever, you can grow in that business too, doing that, if that's also something that you want to do. These are outliers, being go work for a YouTuber, go work for a podcaster, go work for, you could actually do that and be in the space if that's the space you want to be in. But also there are tons of companies that are hiring for photographers and video creators and people who they want them full time, because it might be, they're trying to build out a team and be self-sufficient. It's happening more and more and more. So, you could totally do that. That is an option for you if that's what you want. You can bypass. Your strategy for getting a job is completely different than all these others I'm going to give. So you don't even worry about any of that crap. You just, you're focused on something completely different. Bettering your craft, finding these connections, applying to jobs online, and just getting in the right doors to get those jobs and get interviews and see, just like everybody else. I think it's worth mentioning, because a lot of people don't realize you can just go do that. And it doesn't have to be for a media company. There's lots of companies that are hiring these things. So if you want the stability and you want to do your craft and that's what you want, you could do that. So that is an option for you. The other two, I would say they're all working for yourself, but they're different classifications, and they're even different classifications within them. I'll try to make it quick, but there's freelancing, and then there's having your own business, and then there's, having an online business. You're all kind of working for yourself, but they're a little bit different, and I'll explain them if I can. So, let's start with, how do I want to start? Let's start with starting your own business. So a lot of people want to start their own business. Now, what does that mean exactly? That means that you are, in most cases, you work directly with the end client. So let's take a video production, company or person, for example. Hilton, the hotel, reaches out to Kathman Studios directly to film a corporate event at their hotel. Okay. So I am dealing directly with the client. I probably also, and I definitely did do something to get that client. That's called client acquisition. That is marketing and advertising and whatever you did, the steps in which the money you spent, the time you spent in order to get that client, right? Now they're talking to me directly. Now you're doing sales. You're trying to close that deal. So that's another department, or that's you. And then eventually you get the deal, right? Now you are going to go, let's say, do the event. And now you're going to hire contractors to come out to shoot. So now you are hiring, freelancers to come out and help you, most likely, unless you're a bigger operation and you have full-time staff already. Most of the time, in most cases, because they're so different that you hire out to help. So you're hiring videographers, photographers, and people like that for production day. And you are, hiring them. And then, you get the video back, and now you're in post-production, and you are also then, you could, if you have the money, to also hire out for post-production. You can also hire out for in the front end on sales and even that on client acquisition and marketing and advertising. So you are the business, and you are in charge of all this. And you're also then in charge of the client communication and managing that client and giving them the deliverables or whatever that is, and then trying to maintain that client through years to come so that you can then continue to have, business and manage that relationship. So that's kind of like in video world, that's a little bit of a direct example of you are the business, right? So there is another option to being, going full time, which is freelancing. So in this example, the people that I hired for that production do work for themselves most likely, and maybe they do have their own business. But in this case, they are working as a freelancer for my company. So in this, example, which is a very common example in the, medium small business world here of production and video and photography and stuff like that, of actually going out and doing the service. They work for me. And if I go do that for them, a lot of my buddies, it's just happenstance that a lot of my buddies and people that I know own companies similar to mine, and we work together in a lot of different situations and have for many years. So I may go help them for something, and I am technically a contractor for their company. But in this situation, say we have, a big event at the Hilton, and they're all wearing my t-shirt. Okay, let's make that very plain and clear. It says Kathman on their shirt. On the back it says event staff. I'm trying to paint a picture here. So they may get a lot of these, different events, and that's enough for them to be full time, right? They may not just be working with my company; they'll be working with other companies, and maybe they don't have a company. There's some, a lot of freelancers out there who just do that. So they get hired on by other production companies to go out and shoot, or then maybe to edit, or whatever it may be. And that's say, for instance, something that a lot of creators and stuff get mixed up is in that pricing. So let's say one of the avenue is a freelancer. In that pricing of that, they give, for instance, me the price that they would give a client. So when I ask for your full day or half day rate, a lot of people who've never done it before, worked with a marketing company or worked with another production company, especially in this, realm. I'm not talking about, now there is something to do with, major TV and film that has much higher budgets, like $250,000. But I'm talking about, $3,000 budget, $5,000 budget, $8,000, $10,000 budget, maybe 20. But that's this realm here, right? And so they give me, oftentimes they're giving me their day rate that they would give like a client who asks them, hey, what's your full day rate to go, shoot photos for my daughter's graduation photos? You know what I mean? Like that's the only day rate they have in their mind. What's your half day rate to come do this wedding? That's the only price. And I know it because they give me a price and I'm like, dude, no one's giving you that. For nobody like me, no companies like my friends and people that I know, they're not giving you that because that's not in the budget. That's just not how it operates, unless it's like a big deal and you're, and you're really, really good. But even then, like there is a cap, right? And I know that because also, if you know the price tags on people that are, higher end, and when I say higher end, there's another freelancing. So basically all TV, film, and commercials are all freelancing. Everybody on that set is a freelancer. They don't work for, almost hardly any of them work for, Bright House or Publix or whatever, or even for the production company. They're all hired out. So like, for instance, we're in Florida here. So a Publix commercial, which I worked on several and back in the day, not anymore though. But that is a big production for a 30-second spot, which is like and their budget's probably in the realm of $250,000 for that, 30-second spot. So you have like 100-person crew. You have 18-wheeler of grip trucks. You have, everybody has a job. You got PAs and grips, and you got people flown in from New York and LA, actors, and you got ADs and DPs, and that DP who is filming, by the way, on a cinema camera that's more expensive than your car, was flown in from New York. The director was flown in, and those guys on that big set, their day rates are in the thousands, right? Their day rates are in the thousands, but they are in that very specific niche of, network of people doing that type of work. And they have very, explicit, some of them have agents, it's even like I'm talking about production. The production people have agents who represent them. It's a different type of business. And so I know that even that on that level of budget, $250,000, for instance, that DP may be getting $2,000, right? So there's not a shot in hell that you're going to get $1,500 for doing photos on this shoot that's $5,000. It's just not going to happen. In this, you just got to understand your market, right? And if you want to go for that, by all means. I mean, that's a great business. My buddy, who we used to be business partners on this business with, he wanted to go into that specifically. And that's like when you get into I think it's HubSpot or it's Production Hub. No, Production Hub, you're getting hired out and you put your gear on there and they're hiring you out for documentaries and for, commercial spots and you just try to grow your network within that. And it's a great deal if that's what you want, because you can go and you can, you don't got to be in charge of the client. You don't got to be in charge of, really anything. You just go and you do your job and it's a 10, 12 hour day. You get your day rate. You come home. There's no emails or anything about that, except the next day you go back to shoot and that's, what it is. And there's no headaches from, it's not your own business. You are hired out as a contractor, but you're getting a higher day rate because that's, a bigger budget. I mean, that is a viable option. So just wanted you to know there are different realms of freelance. And so that is definitely one of them that you can do. But if you're in this realm, kind of like my business and a lot of my friends' businesses and pretty common in the video production photo world here, when you're being hired as a freelancer for things like that, you're most likely in the realm of $50 an hour up to maybe $100 an hour is a general range of an idea. And I think that is something that is very good to kind of keep your head around and just to know and to know if you're good enough to command those prices. So, but you're not giving the price to a client. I just want to make this clear. Nobody seems to talk about this, and it happens on a daily basis. It seems, I mean, not daily, but monthly basis with me, where I get these rates. I ask and they give me these rates. I'm like, I know that it's your first time. I know it's your first time giving rates like this, or you've lucked out with some stellar, productions with very high, or someone just overpaid you. Because it's just not in the budget. I mean, if you want to charge me, you're going to charge me $1,500 a day. Let's say it's 2 days and the budget is $5,000 and I'm going to pay you $3,000. Are you out of your mind? That's horrible business. That needs to be cut into a third at minimum. So that's just an idea, but you do more of those. You can do half days, full days, and it's just the way that a little bit better. You have now yes, you do charge less than you would have, if you were a big cinematographer for an ad or whatever, but also, those are far few in between. It's not every single week that you're doing those. It's not every single maybe month that you're doing those big ones, those guys. You know what I mean? So that's why they also can charge more for their expertise and stuff, but they're not coming around all the time. These, which I'm talking about, I got one this week. We got several day one next week, and they have one and he has one, and it's kind of constant like that. So anyway, so just a little bit of an idea of freelancing. If that's something you want to do, I just want to give you something that no one seems to be talking about. I'm like, just adjust your prices. Don't give other production companies and marketing companies your price that you give a client. It's not the same price. So if you're $1,500 to your client to doing, their photos for them to do, or video for them, you want to do their engagement shoot or and it's a half day or whatever, that's your mindset. You're like, oh, it must be the same thing. It's not at all. So readjust, figure out that market to give people, businesses like me, a reasonable rate, something. And, and then also, if that's your goal, then do them favors. That's a lot of the ways that I've gained a lot, in my early days. That's how I got a lot of businesses freelancing, is I would do them favors. Because a lot of times, I need somebody. The client's not paying me enough money to pay anybody, but I do need somebody. So if you help me out, guess who I'm picking next time when I got a big budget? You, for sure. I need help shooting content, for instance, maybe sometime or whatever. I want to do an interview with somebody and I don't have anybody, like offer help to those people, especially the people who have businesses that you know of. It's like, oh yeah, I can definitely help you, because that's how you get your foot in the door. And even on a small business like mine and many of my friends, we're not multi-million-dollar businesses, but we're a business and we could use people. And so that's a definite good way to get in. So sorry about that. Everything got cut off. But that's a little bit of overview of like what type of full-time that you want to be. So actually going full-time, I'll make this quick. I don't got much time left, but let's talk about going full-time if you have your own business. So I actually made a little document here. If you want to leave a comment, I might just give it. I've never done that before, but if you want something like that, I can give you a little guide on what to do here. But so I would first, it would probably be like a 6-month process, right? So month 1 through 6. The first one, what I would do is I would get a real vision and goal in mind for what you actually want. So define a clear business goal, maybe create a vision for what full-time means for you. So kind of what we talked about, what does that actually mean? Then it comes into, number 2 would come into like business planning and strategy. So this is really important, just for yourself, is to really understand what you're going to offer and who you're going to offer it to. So a lot of times, probably the biggest hang up for a lot of people going full-time is not either advertising enough, but not having the right offer, not having the right clientele. So, you're stuck in like, well, no one will pay me enough. I'll only pay, no one will pay me more than $300. So if someone's only paying you $300 to make a video, for instance, either, a couple things, charge more. But firstly, it might be that you may not be good enough yet to command higher prices. That may be just a hard fact. That may be the case. Secondly, it could be that you are selling to the wrong people. So maybe you're selling to people who don't have money. So if you, sell to somebody who only has, let's say, $5,000 to their name, that's all they have. Selling them a $500 product or a $5,000 product is going to be impossible. Selling a $500 product to someone who has $5,000 is going to be, 10% of their whole entire income. Not their income, their whole entire money they have to their life. So it's going to be very difficult to sell them that, and they're going to be really strict because that's 10% of everything they have. And 5,000 is going to be out of the question because that's I don't even have that type. You know what I mean? So you may be selling to the wrong person. Your wrong avatar. I call it's called ICP, your ideal customer profile. This is probably within your content and your business. It's very, very important to find that out. That's why niching down is super prevalent for your business, because it does help you decide on who you're doing it for. And then it helps you really in your marketing and what you offer and your pricing and your strategy and everything. Even like next would be, talking about your branding and marketing. Like your branding should fit your ideal customer. If you don't know who that is, then it's going to be a problem. If you don't know who you're talking to, if you don't know what your offer is, so really I think a lot of people get stuck in before they skip over this step because they go to, let's say, branding and marketing. They go to, trying to do sales and client acquisition. They go to, operations and workflow when they don't really have anything, they go to trying to scale before they have, any kind of idea. Now this one, starting with the end in mind is actually a good idea. So thinking about scaling is actually, now this is counterintuitive, but I would suggest this. Think about scaling at the beginning. Think about, is this scalable? This is a great question to ask early on that I didn't think about, but I could have avoided a lot of heartache and stuff if I would have thought about this early on with different things. So if you have a business model that is like, for instance, you're only getting a couple $100 a pop, and that's like the max the market will allow you to do, then the only way to scale that is going to be volume. And that's a volume-based business. They're out there, and they're a lot of them successful, but they have very low margin rates, and it's quite difficult to scale. You just need to maybe have some capital up front to hire people, because it's going to be like a hourly type rate thing. Like for instance, you got photo shoots that are $100, $200 maybe, and you got to travel for each of them. Like real estate photography, for instance. Scaling that is going to be very difficult, because you as a company are only making $200 a pop, and you got to hire a photographer to go out there to shoot it, and then you got to hire editors to edit it, and you got to hire people to then maybe an administrative assistant to then send it out. You got to have people to deal with the client. It's a lot of work. They want a 24-hour turnaround. It's a quick turnaround, so it's a lot of work. Very difficult to scale. The only way to scale it, because the market says, well, realtors, for instance, are only going to pay you this much, or this much, or whatever it is for that particular listing, photo or video, whatever it is. You have a market cap. So to scale that is the only way is going to be get a lot of them early on, and then you're going to be running a rabbit trying to get this together. And then it's going to be replace yourself with people, and they can only make a certain amount. So you can't pay them, whatever. You can only pay them like maybe an hourly type rate, which isn't super common. You're going to find more employee type of people. So, this is something to think about in your early stage. It is, because that's something to be like, well, what kind of business do you want? That's the kind of thing. Do you want a business that it's only me? If it's only you, then doing a business like that is going to run you ragged. You're never going to have time, because you're never going to make enough money to take off. And if you're not there, nothing gets done. And it's such a low rate that you can't take off much time at all, because, even, booked up, maybe you're doing 3 or 4 in a day, you may make, $800. You know what I'm saying? So it's just, that's not enough to even hire somebody to go out, shoot for, edit for, deliver for, you know what I mean? Like, you're going to come away with, maybe $200 or less. So something to think about. I think probably my best advice for going full time is understand what you want to do, who you want to do it for, and that'll probably help you more than anything else. Because before you do branding, before you do marketing, like my advice for you to get full time may be different, and because there's a lot of ways to get business. Of course, I believe in, content creation. Of course, I believe in online ads. But partnerships are fantastic. They're called affiliates. Maybe, for instance, cold reaching out to a very specific person. That's extremely effective if you know who you're talking to. And you don't need to do any advertising or anything. If you know that you can go and get like a lead getter. Like, for instance, I've told my friends this several times. I'm not in the wedding business, but I know several who are. And there's an easy path that I've seen that several times. They tell me, I'm like, oh, that's definitely the path. The path is you want higher paying wedding. Go to the venues, the higher end venues. Find out who those wedding planners are who does those venues, and those different wedding planners that's your gold mine, because they will do the marketing for you, especially if they like you, and especially if you're good. Like, do whatever you can to form a relationship with them. That's literally all you got to worry about. Don't worry about the hotel owner. Don't worry about going find Susie who's going to get married, or tell your friends to hire me. Find the wedding planner, and then buy them things, do anything. Like, your method is not to do anything but to figure out how to figure that wedding planner out. Understand that becomes your client. That becomes like your main, I'm going to figure them out. And then you're just going to, I can directly outreach, email, DM, whatever to them with some sort of offer, some sort of something, just maybe just, hey, I'm here if you need help, anything. And then you can invent and come up with other ways to reach out to that person. But that person will be getting you, their whole business model revolves around weddings, and they're the ones who usually the people ask and recommend. So that's going to be the person, and you get several of those, and you got a big business. Even one of those, a good one, can give you, 50 weddings a year, maybe. You know what I mean? Like, it's wild. And then now you're in the echelon. now you're doing a lot of weddings. So now more and more people are seeing it outside of that. Right. And then you get those people who are coming in from maybe content, maybe people coming in from, warm leads, maybe people who come, you know what I mean? Like word gets out a little bit, but finding that person and then finding more people like that might be your ticket. So you don't need content marketing. You don't need online ads. You don't need, anything. So my advice is to figure out what is your business. I think niching down does help you a lot. You solve a problem. So a whole business is basically this. There's a problem and you solve it. And then people pay you to solve that problem. That's really it. So what problem do you want to solve and who do you want to solve it for? It's what problem do you want to solve and who do you want to solve it for? That's it. So if you can figure that out, then you're going to have a much better way of making a full-time business, because then everything you do, I've said this several times, but everything you do can be garnered towards that, right? I mean, everything you do. If you want to do headshots as a photographer, like affiliate partnerships and becomes, potentially like they're your person who gets you all your stuff because their business relies on people like you to succeed. Like their business needs your business, but they don't do your thing. So this is how a lot of companies operate, how their whole business model is derived from creating these partnerships with other businesses. And that could be your main and only thing you need to do. You may not need to worry about anything else. So for instance, like, you want to do acting headshots, yes, you could do content marketing. Yes, you can do ads. You can market to, and I think that's all great and you probably should. But a big one you might get is getting those agencies to be on their list. So there's a lot of ways that you can go full time. Hopefully this helped you some, but really, especially if you're your own business, I know they say you don't want to niche down because you're afraid. Listen, my first business, our slogan was, you name it, we shoot it. And that does work in the early stages. And that does work if, you just want to be a journalist. You can't command high prices, but you may work a lot and that may be great for you. And honestly, if that's your path, definitely do it. I'm just saying, like, a faster way, maybe a more viable way might be to niche down. However, if you have never done any kind of video photo work before, then yes, you don't know what you're good at. You don't know what you like, and you have no experience or nothing at all. So I highly recommend just doing anything you can to get some business in the door. And that's probably going to come from just general business. But once you get practice, once you get better, once you get a portfolio, once you start figuring out what you do and don't like, a really good way is to decide on who would be your ideal customer, who would be your ICP, who's that great customer that you really, really want that's just like you. Kind of like me right now, I'm talking to my former self. In the future, maybe you might be my ideal customer, but I'm talking to people just like me, hopefully. And that's great because we're very similar in a lot of ways, probably. You know what I mean? Like, that would be a great person to have. So similar in your business, find out who that might be, and then what you can, and then what you can sell them, because that's probably the biggest disconnect, is figuring out who it's for, and then what are you selling them? What are you giving them? Like, so what is it, and then who is it? So those two things will really help you dramatically make your business full-time, because like I said, your marketing, your client acquisition, your advertising, your lead generation, even your, deliverables and what you do and how you market your name, what you say you do. Think about it. Like, you go to an Instagram and they say what they do. Now, if that says, I do acting headshots, it's very, very specific, or than just a photo video company. It's like, okay, cool. But like, I do, XYZ. I do this for this people. I solve this problem for this person. And that's very specific. And then they're like, oh, this person's talking to me. And exactly. So, I know it sounds, oh man, I don't want to do that, but trust me, give it a shot. If you have experience, if you don't have experience, just do anything and everything you can do to get some people to say yes, work for free. Even if you want to get into a field, offer yourself your services for free. It will still be hard. It's not going to be easy. I'm going to tell you this right now. even if you offer for free, you're still gonna have to sell and let me just tell you, it's because it's still people's time. And if you're dealing with businesses, it's still their business on the line. So, even if it seems small to you, it's not to them. So it still will require some selling, but it will be less friction. So if you don't have anything, especially if you're trying to get into a field, offer it for free or discounted rate. That's a really good way to lead gen, to get new customers, to get that portfolio, to get in that circle. That's really what's going to help you the most. And then if you do have experience, you're trying to go full-time and maybe you don't know exactly what you want to do, figure out who bought from you the most. Look at last year and look to see, where did you sell the most? It may not be what you're trying to sell. I mean, you may be trying to sell this new thing and you haven't had success in it in 2 years. You've been trying to push it and no success or very little. But 2/3 of your business last year was this one thing. What was that one thing? Maybe you should put, and you'd hardly put any effort into it. Maybe, you know what I mean? Maybe that was your 80% of your income, but it was like 20% of your effort, the 80-20 rule. So perhaps maybe this year, if you put 80% of your effort into that, 80% income, you would, likely 10x your business in a matter of months or a year. So if you have experience, look to see what's already working and then maybe double down on things that are working and then just get rid of the things and maybe reposition your company, yourself, to go after those things that you really think, oh man, like if I really went after this, it would be incredible. And might be the exact thing that I want. Perfect. Then try that, because you can always go back. You can always, hey, we're general now. We can do all this stuff. You can always, I've changed my site several times. I've changed what we do several times. I've pitched, this one, though, this is what we do. And I made it look like, which, it was true at the time, business cards, website, pitch deck, Instagram bio, whatever. This was for this person. You can change it back. It's no big deal. So just what you're doing, especially at this point, by the way, I'm talking to now if you made it this far, I'm talking to the very well, like you've done this a while. If you made it to this point in the podcast or this video, whatever this is, then I'm just telling you that you can always go back. But what you're doing now is you're making adjustments on data. Okay. This is smart. You are making adjustments on data. Okay. You've now gone to the market and you're getting feedback. That's what great businesses do. That's what great people in business do, is that they adjust. You didn't fail. You're literally adjusting. It's like, writing a joke and thinking it's funny and then getting up on stage and no one laughs. You adjust. Okay. So that's what you got to do. Base it on the data. Look, what's working already? What would you like to work more? Why would you like to work that more? Why are you trying to push this? Well, what if you did that here? Adjust, and if you've never tried to niche down, try it. Try it on Google Docs. Try it in ChatGPT. Try it in your little notebook. That's what I mean. Try it there and then envision it. You'll be like, well, if I did what Dan said and I niched down here, and this is what 80% of our business was last year, I didn't really try that hard. But, if I was going after these weddings, I wouldn't have to make all this content trying to get people interested, because I would just go after the wedding planners and I could probably just cold DM them and maybe get some, or maybe I could join some associations for weddings. And maybe if my whole website was dedicated to weddings, that might entice